What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we are getting back into How Do I Want to Do This with our first proper video of 2024 stuff. I know that that we've done a little bit of 2024, but that was all homebrew, and so now we're getting back into the actual stuff that is new and to some of us exciting. Some of us are completely ignoring it, and that's totally fine. But yeah, we're going to cover it, and if you're sticking with 2014, totally fine. I appreciate you sticking around. Either way, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and of course share the video with your friends and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. Like I said, I put out a video, well, a couple of videos actually, as a 5,000 subscriber special, so again, thank you, where we homebrewed a subclass for every single class under the new 2024 rules, and of course all of my members get access to the write-ups for those, and you can of course check those out. I'll throw part 1 up in the iCard above right there for you to look at. It's interesting. I came up with some really fun ideas, and now I'm excited to get into the normal stuff. We're talking about Barbarian today, and it's going to be cool. Now, we're going to do this a little different than how we've done our How Do I Want to Do This in the past. This is going to be more like a podcast type of video, not a whole lot of just straight ranking things, because a lot of you know what the Barbarian used to do, and so really we're just going to be kind of comparing and contrasting, seeing what is changed, what's better or worse, and then seeing if our overall ranking has improved or gotten worse, or how are we looking now with these new changes, which is really cool. So without any further ado, we're going to jump right in. So starting off, we of course have Rage. It's a Barbarian. You gotta have Rage, right? So it's mostly the same, except we changed a couple of things. So now, instead of only being when we use an attack on our turn to maintain our Rage, right, we are now going to be able to use a bonus action, and that actually will maintain our Rage, or you can force an enemy to make a saving throw. Either way, you can keep your Rage, which is just great. That's definitely a huge improvement. And then we also, whenever we finish a short rest, we can get back 1 use of our Rage. Those are pretty great changes, honestly. I think that's a really, really nice improvement. I'm all for that. I gave this a 10 out of 10 last time, and I think it's still a 10 out of 10. I don't think that we can really change that. Rage is still as good as it's ever been, giving us resistances and giving us bonuses to saving throws and all that good stuff. Like, it's great. So I really can't fault it any more than that. So next up in 2024 rules, of course, we have new things in weapon masteries. So this was not in the 2024 rules, but essentially what this does is it allows us to unlock some potential in some new weapons that just get a secondary effect, right? This is just a means of trying to bring marshals up with your casters. Still not enough, but either way, it's still a way to at least try to give you a secondary effect, whether it's like a tripping effect or a slowdown effect or whatever it is, just depending on the weapon and what property it has. Basically, it just means we can choose 2 weapons, and we get to use those masteries during the day. We can swap that out every day. So yeah, really cool. I don't think that that's a bad thing. Like I said, I didn't rank it before because it didn't exist. And so now I think it's like 8 or 9 territory. I think it's really good. I don't mind having the secondary effects on here at all. Gives you kind of spells light. It's not quite spells, and obviously some weapons are better than others. Some of the suckier weapons have the best effects on them, and vice versa. So you've got to be really picky. And now there's actually a reason to diversify what weapons that you want to take, which is a really good thing. Next up, unarmored defense. That was unchanged. That's still the same. It was a 6 out of 10 before. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10 again. We're using dexterity and constitution, 2 skills that are not our primary, and so that is going to cause us to not be as good with AC as we could be. And of course, we can't use heavy armor because of Rage. So it's okay, I guess. Danger Sense is next, and Danger Sense actually got buffed a little bit because we no longer need to see or hear the effects in order to get the advantage on the dex saves. That's a straight buff. To me, that's enough to bump that up to a 9. It was an 8 before when I had this, but that's enough to go up to a 9 for me. Just being able to, you automatically sense it, and that way your DM can't just be like, oh, well, you didn't know it was coming, and then, you know what I mean? So it cuts out a lot of that frustratingness if you've got a DM that's trying to be sneaky. So yeah, to me that's really good. Next up, Reckless Attack. We gave this a 9 before, and this actually is really interesting because it no longer only lasts on your turn. It actually lasts the entire round, meaning you can now Reckless on opportunity attacks, which you could not before. That's pretty cool. I definitely really like that. I know a lot of people ruled that you could before just because obviously you had advantage on you throughout, and so that was kind of something that people allowed in some cases. Rules as written, technically you couldn't do that, and so now you can, which I think is good. I think I'm going to leave it at 9. Mainly because people were doing this anyway, for the most part. So, yes, rules as written, it's not what it was, but most people were already doing this, and so I don't think I can really justify moving it all that much. Next, we have Primal Knowledge. I gave that a 6 out of 10 before. And essentially, it's the same thing as before. There's not really a whole lot to do there, except there are certain ability scores now that we can replace the score that we use with strength. That's really cool, right? There's a list there, and it basically allows you to use strength instead of, let's say, charisma for intimidation, right? Which makes so much sense. And people homebrew this. I've homebrewed this and done this at my table multiple times, because, I mean, if you're large and foreboding, that is intimidating, right? But then just because you have bad charisma, that's not scary suddenly, that doesn't make any sense. And so to me, being able to use strength on something like that makes complete sense. Now, it is only while you're raging, so that makes it tough for me to have to use a rage in order to do that. I normally just homebrew this to where you can do it. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you do, but I do hate that you have to use a rage, but at least it's an option now. So it's there at least. We get extra attack, of course, that's unchanged. Fast movement was a 7 out of 10 before. That's unchanged, so nothing really to discuss there. Feral Instinct was unchanged, although they took out some wording having to do with surprise, and of course, because surprise is completely different now, it makes sense. So technically, I would say that this is unchanged. So it's still a 10 out of 10. I'm not gonna fault it for that. Instinctive Pounce is also pretty much unchanged. Of course, it's now an official feature rather than just a Tasha feature, which is great. Next, we get one of our biggest changes to the class, honestly, and this is in Brutal Critical. Brutal Critical no longer exists. It is now Brutal Strike. The thing is, Brutal Critical, the issue with it is that it only worked on crits, right? Now, of course, we found ways to enhance our ability to deal crits, right? But ultimately, you can't guarantee that. So that makes this a little bit limited in what you can do. However, with Brutal Strike, we now are very different. Brutal Strike is very, very different. So what's cool now is you automatically get extra damage when you're using Reckless. Perfect. Love that. And you get a secondary effect on top of that, which is really good. And so you can either push somebody or you can actually slow them down. Either way, really good and works great with the slasher feat, which is cool. Either way, it's nice. And so I really, really like that. Now, you do have to forego your advantage in order for this to work. But if the AC is low enough, it's worth it to me. And I'm completely fine with it. So that's awesome. I love that. And of course, the changes to Great Weapon Master make it to where this might be something you actually would use instead of just doing Great Weapon Master or take the -5 and that kind of thing. So to me, it's kind of worth it. And I gave it a 7 out of 10 before, again, because it's limited to crits. Now I'd give this an 8 out of 10. I think it's improved. Being able to hit it pretty much any time. You don't have to crit in order to get extra damage. I love that. I think it's cool. And technically the damage is going to be at least equal unless you're using a D12 weapon. And even then you're going to be doing probably a little bit better later on anyway. So I think it's cool. So yeah, as long as you're using a D10 weapon or less, it's the same extra damage pretty much. So yeah, either way, it's just better. So I like that. Relentless Rage, we gave a 10 out of 10 before. And this just got buffed. It's no longer when you drop to 0, you hit 1 pending a saving throw. You now gain twice your Barbarian level pending a saving throw. And then, of course, as the same scaling, you add 5 for every time you succeed and that kind of thing. So it got buffed. It's better. You know, is it going to make a huge difference? It depends, right? Because as you're scaling up, right, you know, gaining, let's say you're level 20 and you gain 40 hit points, you can still lose 40 hit points in a turn pretty easily at that level. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's tough. Like, and it's tough, right? I don't know that it's gonna always catch you, but at least there's a better chance than being at 1, so I'll take that. Where Brutal Critical would have gone to 2 dice, we of course now get improved Brutal Strike, which technically is a new feature. It just gives us some more options essentially here that we can use some secondary effects, which is nice. Again, better. The damage stays the same, whereas we were at 1d6 before, now we're at 2d6. Originally, we now are still at 1d10, but we get some more secondary options, which honestly is still better in my opinion. We didn't rank this before, so I'm really not going to rank this because it's just an improvement, but I like it. I don't think it's bad. So next is Persistent Rage, and this got a lot of interesting nuanced changes. So basically we now have an extended length of time that we can rage. We now can go for 10 minutes instead of just 1. That's cool, right? However, they had to add in a little bit of a catch in the wording just to make sure that somebody didn't try to cheese this, because even though Rage says you cannot rage while you have heavy armor, I guess there is a world where technically somebody could then rage and then don the heavy armor and try to maintain that rage because you now have 10 minutes since donning armor takes some time. I don't know. I don't know that I would have even said that that's allowed anyway, but at least they said something about it. But the other thing about this is that all of your rages come back if you roll initiative and have 0. That's huge, because now that essentially gives you double the amount. Now you can do this once per long rest, so it gives you double the amount. Now we are not going to go to an unlimited number of rages at level 20, but come on, you're getting 12. If you run out of 12 rages, something's wrong. Something is very wrong, especially with Persistent Rage, meaning that your rage isn't going to break. So yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense there. So yeah, Persistent Rage I gave a 7 before. This is a 9 now. This definitely is a big improvement, and I very much like that. Very, very cool. Brutal Critical, of course, then got buffed again to improve Brutal Critical. So again, I didn't rank anything on that, but we now get an additional d10 of damage, so 2d10 extra, and we can now choose 2 effects instead of just 1, which is really, really cool. I like that a lot, actually. It's really interesting. Then we get Indomitable Might. I gave that a 7 before. It was just strength checks that it worked on. Now it also includes strength saving throws. I don't think that that's consequential enough to mean that I need to bump that up from a 7. I'm going to leave it at a 7. I'm not really all that excited about it. And then at level 19, we get a change that happened to every class. So I'm not going to actually put a ranking on this, but instead of an ASI, you get an epic boon here. There's a bunch of choices that you can take, or you can take a different feat. It's whatever you want to do. But like I said, I'm not going to rank this because every class gets it. So there's not really a point, because it's not better or worse for any one class over the other. It's all the same. And then Primal Champion, the only difference here is that you can actually go to 25 now instead of 24 when you gain the +4 bonus to the strength and constitution. So yeah, really interesting changes. Now, before I gave this a 7 out of 10 as a class. And so I guess the question is, do we think that it is improved enough to move that needle, or are we still where we're at, or did it get worse? I'm happy to report it definitely did not get worse, which is good. I don't know that I can say that about every single class, although I would say it about all of them except for maybe one. All of these things are improvements. Pretty much all of it is a buff, and I love that. Barbarians were already pretty good, right? They're tanks, they hit really hard, they have pretty good movement. Their AC is okay, but the resistances help with that anyway, so it doesn't matter. But now we get weapon mastery. Now our brutal critical now is no longer reliant on crits, which is really good. And just a lot of really little quality of life stuff, right? Reckless attack now works on opportunity attacks where it didn't before. Again, a little thing that maybe your table was already doing, but now it's actually in the rules, right? Danger sense, you don't get cheesed by your DM. Just quality of life kind of stuff. And so I really like those changes. It makes a lot of sense, actually. So to me, is it a 9 or a 10? I still don't know that I can do that. I really don't. Even with the weapon mastery, which is great, giving us some secondary effects, even with us having the brutal strike and being able to add more effects, having to do with speed and some other things, even with all of that stuff, you don't have magic, and you can't have magic because of rage, and ultimately that is going to hold us back. Now, I do think it's improved enough to go to an 8, and that is where we are going to land on the new Barbarian. I cannot put it in 9 or 10 territory with no magic. I'm sorry, I can't. Just spells are too good nowadays, especially with some of the game-breaking things that they wrote into this, aka Warcaster, which is going to definitely need an errata to change it because holy cow. But yeah, there are just so many other things that you can do with spells that are just going to beat this out. You may have longevity, you may be able to tank the hits a little bit better, but man, if somebody has just exploded or disappeared in front of you, that's better than you hitting them really hard and them staying around. So ultimately, we're going to improve this to an 8 out of 10. And I think that's the best that I can do. So let me know what you think of the new Barbarian down below. Next week, we are going on with our normally as scheduled How Do I Want to Do This series. And we are going to be going through all of the Barbarian subclasses. So 4 weeks of subclasses, and then we are moving on to Bard. Of course, we skipped Artificer because that is still in Unearthed Arcana. So we're not going to be talking about that until it comes out. But yeah, we're going to go through that once it is official. So hope you all enjoyed. Leave a comment down below. Till next time, stay safe out there. Stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.